Coming up on Network Africa, Zimbabwe's Constitutional Court dismisses opposition's challenge to the presidential election results. South Africa's foreign ministry expresses disappointment over what it describes as America's failure to use diplomatic channels to raise its concerns about its land policy. And fierce fighting reported in Cameroon between soldiers and Anglophone separatist rebels. Hello and welcome to the program. I'm Teniola Shoboale. Zimbabwe's highest court has thrown out a bid by the main opposition, MDC Alliance, to annul President Emmerson Mnangagwa's victory in the heavily disputed July 30 election. Delivering the verdict, Chief Justice Luke Malaba called the allegations of ballot tampering bold. It was Zimbabwe's first election since long-term leader Robert Mugabe was ousted from power last year. 2 days after the vote, at least 6 people were killed in clashes between security forces and MDC Alliance supporters who alleged that party leader Nelson Chamisa had been robbed of victory. South Africa's Foreign Minister, Lindiwe Sisulu, has expressed disappointment about what she describes as the United States' failure to use diplomatic channels to raise its concerns about Pretoria's land policy. The Foreign Affairs Department made their views known to a senior U.S. diplomat summoned to the Foreign Office in an escalating dispute between the two countries over South Africa's plans to allow for the expropriation of some white-owned farmland without compensation.
South Africa has accused U.S. President Donald Trump of stoking racial divisions in a tweet in which he said he had asked Secretary of State Mike Pompeo to study South African land and farm seizures and the killing of farmers. However, the U.S. State Department says it is concerned that the land expropriation without compensation will take South Africa on the wrong path.
The President asked the Secretary to look closely at the current state of action in South Africa related to land reform. This is something that has been going on for many decades, the conversation and debate about land reform there. I should mention that the expropriation of land without compensation, our position is that that would risk sending South Africa down the wrong path. We continue to encourage a peaceful and transparent public debate about what we consider to be a very important issue, and the South Africans certainly do as well.
Nevertheless, the South African government says President Trump's tweet is a narrow perception that divides the nation.
Whilst we have this concern about the tweet and the resolution of the legislature, many nations have actually afforded South Africa the space to resolve this matter and keep them updated based on our own relationships that we have together with them. So these fallouts, of course, for now we've not fallen out with anyone. What we seek to do is to make sure that everybody understands what is the intention of the South African people.
Also, far-left opposition firebrand Julius Malema, who has led calls for the seizure of white-owned land, says Mr. Trump's tweet has only left his party more determined to push for expropriations.
We want to send a strong message to the USA authorities, just like we did with the Australian authorities. Stay out of South Africa's domestic affairs. South Africa is a post-colonial country seized with deep racial inequalities that were long designed by apartheid and colonialism. Our land expropriation program seeks to realize the ideal of equality and human dignity. Through land expropriation, we are forcing the white people to share the land which was gained through a crime against the humanity of black people and African people in particular. Be that as it may, we must put it on record that Donald pathological liar Trump were not scared of you and your USA or Western imperialist forces.
Early this month, President Cyril Ramaphosa said that the ruling African National Congress will forge ahead with plans to change the constitution to allow the expropriation of land without compensation. White farmers still own most of South Africa's land more than 2 decades after the end of apartheid.
Joining us now to discuss this is South African journalist Becky Mthula. Hello, Becky.
Hello.
What is America's interest in this act?
Well, America and South Africa have always had good relationships. You can see that, American embassies and consulates are all over the country. So America is simply just trying to continue their good relation and just say, what is going on. But I think one of the biggest perception was that America or Donald Trump acted without getting the full information. So that is what has led. They don't really have an interest in this issue, but they were led to believe that there is some violence going on. So that's why he acted in the manner he did.
Okay, so there's been mixed reactions to the act within South Africa. The government says the US is trying to divide the nation. Others say it's about time it happened. What does the average South African think about this?
The average South African is looking forward to this because, as we can say, almost 69% of the land is owned by 9% minority. Black people, most black people do not own land. And those that do own land have it under some sort of agreement. So the normal black person on the street thinks this is a good idea because it gives them an opportunity to get what belongs to them.
So how has this situation before now affected the people and the economy?
Economy-wise, it hasn't affected that much. But then you can see the rand is going up and down in the markets at the moment. But in South Africa, there seems to be a rising tension now between the black people and the white people. But there hasn't been really fights where people are physically fighting. But there is some sense of unpleasantness because people do not really know the direction this could take, because it can take either direction at this point.
Okay, what is the difference between this and the land grabs in Zimbabwe, where former President Robert Mugabe seized lands from the whites and gave to the blacks?
The situation that happened in Zimbabwe was slightly different because this time around, first and foremost, President Ramaphosa called the nation to get their views, and then he intends on doing it legally by amending the constitution. In the case of Zimbabwe, the land was just grabbed and there was no proper plan in place as to what is going to happen to the people that the land is being grabbed for. This situation is not a matter of repossessing land and leaving people landless. It's a matter of sharing the land. It's not a matter of kicking people out for good. It's a matter of let's share the land. Let's sit down and share the land, because these people own vast majority of the land and it's huge farms. So the government is coming up with a strategy to say, no, let everyone get a piece of land. Let's share the land. It's not really like grabbing the land by force and forcing people out. I mean, where would we chase them to? If you look at the historical figures, the history behind this, if you look at the people like the Afrikaner people, they are South African. Now, there is nowhere else that they can go. So we cannot say, no, we're kicking them out of the land. It's their land, but we are just saying, let's share the land.
Okay, thank you, South African journalist Becky Mthula, for keeping us updated on that.